it comes to iconic guitars and what their players named them, there are few more legendary than Lucille. But did you know this isn't the first Lucille? Or even the fifth, and probably not even the 10th. This episode is in honor of the king of the blues, B.B. King, and the amazing story behind his signature guitars that we all know as Lucille. I'm Thom Tran, and this is the show where I go in-depth into my guitar collection and that of my friends to give you all the nerdy gear goodness, like specs and pricing, but also the story, both historic and personal, about these rare and special instruments and how they got into our hands. This is the story behind the strings. This is my 2020 Epiphone Lucille B.B. King signature guitar. I decided to drop this episode today, May 14th, in honor of the late great bluesman who passed away on this date in 2015. Before we get started, real quick, thanks for watching. It's been fun making these for you. Please like, subscribe, share the show. Click on the bell icon to be notified when a new episode drops. And we are still trying to hit 5,000 subscribers, and when that happens, I will be giving one of you a guitar. Details on that later. Like always, let's start with the specs. We'll talk about this 2020 Epiphone model because, like the King's actual instruments, there were a lot of versions of this guitar. Much like your mom in the 1970s, we'll sort through that sordid history in just a little bit. Tell your mom I said hi. Now, there are slight differences between the models, like fingerboard material, but they are all mostly the same. Like all of the Gibson Epiphone Lucille models, it's based on the ES335, with the main difference being the lack of F-holes, making it distinctly the King signature model. This 2020 edition is made of a 5-ply maple poplar blend. It's got a maple center block, a spruce bracing, and painted in a beautiful ebony with a gloss finish. There's a 5-ply ES335 style bound tortoise pickguard. This version of Lucille has a multi-ply binding on the body and headstock and a single-ply binding on the neck. You've got gold finished hardware, an Epiphone lock-tone tune-o-matic bridge, TP6 stop bar bridge with fine tuners. There's a gold Veritone washer and cream switch tip. The control covers on the back are also made of a black PVC. You've got a set of El Nico Classic Pro pickups in the neck and bridge positions with a gold pickup cover and black mounting rings. Lucille has a 3-way Epiphone toggle switch, 2-volume and 2 tone pots, black speed knobs, and a black chicken head knob for the 6-position Veritone circuit, and we'll talk about that Veritone circuit in just a minute. You've got 2 Epiphone 1/4-inch input jacks, one for mono and one for stereo, and the maple neck has a rounded C profile with ebony fretboard, 24 3/4-inch scale, 12-inch fingerboard radios, and 22 medium jumbo frets. There's a brass truss rod cover with B.B. King's name engraved on it and a mother of pearl Lucille inlay on the headstock. You've also got gold Grover Rotomatic tuners with keystone buttons. And this model comes with an Epi-Light case. Now, we briefly mentioned the Veritone switch earlier, so what is it? Well, in some circles they call it a tone suck. Each position has a preset chunk of midtones that it cuts out, so you can increasingly get like a nasally sound by the time you get to position 6, while in position 1 the Veritone is completely disengaged. Now, it's easier to hear what that sounds like, so let's give the Veritone a quick run through.
Position 1. Position 2. Position 3. Position 4. Position 5. Position 6.
Now, you shouldn't have to kill yourself trying to get your hands on a guitar. That's a lesson that B.B. King learned, and it's the reason he named every guitar Lucille, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So getting your own Lucille isn't that difficult. Again, we're talking about this 2020 Epiphone model, but generally, it's not that difficult to find a Gibson version or one of the other Epiphone editions, depending on the color. As of the recording of this episode, you can still get a factory direct Epiphone Lucille for the list price of $949. It's also available through retailers like Sweetwater and Guitar Center. But if you want to save a few $100 and you don't mind used gear, you can find them on the usual third-party sites like Reverb for between $650 and $800. And if you're okay with one of the earlier versions, I've even seen a 2012 model listed for about $500. Just a heads up, there are limited edition models in cherry red and bone white that cost a little more than $1,000. So who is the woman behind the famous name? Was Lucille B.B. King's one true love? Was she the one that got away? No, he never even met Lucille. According to the King, in an interview with NPR, he was playing at a dance hall in Twist, Arkansas sometime in early 1949. Now there's a plaque in Twist that says this happened in the mid-1950s, but I'm gonna go with what the man that was actually there says. Now, because it was a cold winter night, they had to heat the venue with a barrel half full of kerosene that they lit on fire and set in the middle of the dance hall for people to dance around like some blues-filled Lord of the Flies nightmare. And they used burning kerosene-filled barrels because clearly OSHA wasn't a thing. Come to think of it, it wasn't a thing. OSHA didn't happen until like 1971, but whatever. In the middle of the set, two dudes started a fight, and according to King, one guy threw the other guy over the burning kerosene barrel and knocked it over a, quote, river of fire all over the dance floor and set the venue in flames. Everyone bailed out of the burning building, but once he got outside, B.B. King realized that he'd left his $30 Gibson in the venue and ran back in to get it. Now, King says after he collected his prized guitar from the burning building, as he was running out, the mostly wooden structure started collapsing around him, and he nearly lost his life trying to retrieve the instrument. Now, you may be thinking $30 was a lot in 1949. That's roughly the equivalent of $380 in 2024 money. And depending on your circumstances, yes, that could be a lot of money. But a pair of tickets to Taylor Swift cost people thousands of dollars. Don't judge me. The next day, he found out the two guys were fighting over a woman that worked there named Lucille. And that's when he decided to name his guitar and every subsequent guitar Lucille, to remind him to, quote, never do something as stupid as run into a burning building for a guitar or fight over a woman. So every guitar since then has been named Lucille. And although in his early years King did play a Fender Telecaster, Lucille is typically known as some version of a Gibson ES series, like an ES330, an ES335, or ES340, or so on. Then in 1980, Gibson Guitars unveiled the B.B. King signature model Lucille, which is based on his Gibson ES355 TD. One of the changes that sets his signature model apart from just being a 355 is that King requested no F-holes, which he said would reduce the feedback. Gibson made different versions and variations throughout the years, and just like King's, each one is still Lucille. And of course, in addition to the Gibson standard versions, their subsidiary Epiphone also made lower cost models constructed overseas and released a new version every few years or so. The differences include pickup variations, changes to the pick guard, different fingerboard wood, things like that. And like I mentioned earlier, they come in a few different colors, including that sexy cherry red model. I'm going to admit something publicly for the first time ever, right here. I am a bit of a headstock snob, or at least I was. My first ever guitar was a Squier, but I was 13, and then after I started playing in bands and gigging in high school, whether it was in school or in public, it was always like, Fender or nothing. Give me Gibson or give me death. Ibanez, it's good enough for your mom, it's good enough for me. I don't know why there's so many mom jokes this week. Anyway, as I progressed as a musician and I was playing in bands, it was always like, I only want to play what the pros play. Call it immaturity or lack of experience or whatever, but that's how it was for a while. But I also did grow up at a time when Squiers just weren't that good, and Gibson really didn't pay much attention to the Epiphone brand. Regardless, in recent years I've been hearing from my friends and other players just how good this new generation of quote-unquote lower tier brand guitars was. So I started plucking away at a few, including Lucille. And you know what? I dug them. The quality and sound was better than instruments from these brands in previous decades. Hell, Jared James Nichols' signature blues power guitar is an Epiphone, not a Gibson. So, as per usual, I sniffed out a pretty good deal online. There was a guy selling one in Corona, California, like 60 miles east of LA. He'd bought it brand new just a few months earlier, but it wasn't for him. So I made him an offer and said, hey, I'll save you the fees and give you cash, and we'll save me the shipping charges by driving out and picking it up. He agreed, we knocked a couple $100 off the price. Now the problem now was that if you've ever driven 60 miles in or around Los Angeles, then you know that that's a day-long event. I'd have to do it on a weekend, so I'd have to explain to my girlfriend why one of the few days we get to spend together, I gotta drive 60 miles to buy a guitar. Or Because my girlfriend and I like to take food adventures and we will drive long distances to try good restaurants, I could rebrand the road trip as a romantic adventure to find some good barbecue and donuts. Don't worry, I'm not putting myself on blast. She is not an idiot. She knew exactly what was happening and she was down for a road trip. So it was a happy bonus for me that I got to save a couple $100 on a guitar and we found some pretty decent barbecue. And I have played the Gibson version of Lucille, which does have higher end specs and details that make it a Gibson. But I just couldn't justify the $3,000 to $5,000 price tag for a guitar that I honestly wouldn't play live. Not because it's not a great guitar, but I'm an 80s shred guy. I just wanted to have an ES style guitar in the studio for when I need those tones, and these newer Epiphones scratch that tonal itch at a pretty good price. Also, I wanted to do an episode about it. There it is, the story behind the strings of my 2020 Epiphone BB King Lucille. Did you know how she got her name? Have you played either version or any of the previous ones? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching the show. We're still trying to hit 5,000 subscribers so I can give away that Sterling AX20 Rockstar Edition guitar that I featured in my birthday episode back in February. All you've got to do to be entered to win is subscribe to the channel and leave a comment on this or any of the previous episodes. And when we hit 5,000 or more subscribers, I'll randomly pick a winner from those comments. Also, you have to live in the continental United States. Sorry to my overseas subscribers. If you haven't yet, please like the episode, tap the bell icon to be notified when a new episode drops, and share the channel with your friends. It does help the algorithm, and maybe it'll get us to 5,000 subscribers a little quicker. You can further support the show by becoming a Patreon patron and becoming a roadie, a guitar tech, or a hired gun. You get shout-outs and swag, and you can help pick a guitar that I go behind the strings of. If you want one of my custom tees, they're available at ThomTranShop.com. Oh, also my Patreon patrons will get free tickets to my stand-up comedy shows when I come to your town, and those stand-up dates are available on my website at ThomTran.com. You can follow me on all the usual places like Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok. Links to everything are in the description. Thanks again, and let the strings tell your story. 5-ply ES335 style pot. This 2020 edition is made of a flat. Now I'm gonna admit something publicly.